Hello, RotoBallers. It's that time of the week again. It's time to talk DSTs. And with only the Colts and the Saints unavailable due to their mandated time off, we have a full complement of options at our disposal. Here are 5 defenses fantasy managers can start with confidence in week number 11. And we start things off with the Houston Texans as they take on the Tennessee Titans. Now, despite surrendering 29 points against the Jacksonville Jaguars last week, the Houston Texans proved once again that they are a must-start defense each and every single week. Heading into week 11, only the Seattle Seahawks have bested the Texans 9.8 fantasy points per game. But because of the Jaguars' offensive outburst, people are questioning the Texans' legitimacy. Stop box score watching, people. Even with 29 points against, Houston produced 14 fantasy points courtesy of their defense, and more importantly, the Texans are the only DST to finish with 5 or more fantasy points in every single game this season. Donnelly Hunter, he was a force to be reckoned with last week, sacking Trevor Lawrence 3.5 times, while Sheldon Rankins recovered a fumble after Will Anderson had gone to Lawrence to close out that contest. All in all, the Texans, they got to Lawrence 5 times. That's not great news to hear if you're Cam Ward, who has been sacked 38 times this season, more than any other quarterback this year. Another DSTM started this week. How about the New England Patriots as they take on the New York Jets? And I bet you were thinking, hey, let's go with the New York Jets. They just returned 2 kickoffs for touchdowns that contributed to 19 fantasy points. So yeah, the Jets, they could be a sleeper option this week, and it doesn't hurt that the Patriots have yielded 35 sacks this season. But on the other sideline, you have Justin Fields leading an offense that has surrendered 34 sacks this season, and he's still Justin Fields. Unlike the Jets, New England, they have been a consistent producer for fantasy managers all season long, averaging 7.9 fantasy points per game despite consecutive weeks with 2 or fewer fantasy points. While they aren't in what you would call elite territory, the Patriots sit in the upper half of the season in sacks with 22 and turnovers with 11 with 7 interceptions. While the Jets, they've turned the ball over on 11 separate occasions themselves. Now, I tried to rewatch the Jets game film. I do not like green eggs and ham, and I do not like what they've done to Garrett Wilson, man. We're talking about 0 receptions and 3 targets. Justin Fields, he completed just 6 of 11 passes for 54 yards, with 42 of those yards coming courtesy of a Breece Hall screen. This is an offense just, you know what, you can't even trust the Jets offense for anything, but you can trust the Jets offense when you're playing a DST against them. The New England Patriots defensive backs, they may end up with more receptions this week than the New York Jets wide receivers. I'm just saying. Now, another defense I'm feeling good about this week. How about the Atlanta Falcons as they take on the Carolina Panthers? Now, it's not often that a team that just gave up 31 points along with 3 touchdowns, 244 yards rushing, just a week ago makes it onto a must start this week. Yet, you have to take a closer look at those numbers when we're talking about the Atlanta Falcons. Now, although they conceded all of them points and all of them yards, they still mustered a top 10 fantasy finishes amongst the DSTs. Yes, you heard that correctly. Atlanta's defense, they left Berlin after leaving Daniel Jones battered and bloodied, sacking the Colts quarterback on 7 occasions, picking him off once, forcing 3 fumbles, 1 of which the Falcons did recover. They don't ask how in fantasy, they ask how many. Atlanta, they have now posted back-to-back 10-point fantasy performances, and they have a date with Bryce Young and the Carolina Panthers this week. Against the Saints, Carolina's offense could only manage 191 total yards of offense beyond Rico Dowdle's 52 yards rushing and Young's 17 of 25 passing that led to just 124 yards. Another defense you gotta fire up. How about the Miami Dolphins as they take on the Washington Commanders? Let's give Marcus Mariota just a little bit of credit here. He did manage to throw for 213 yards on 16 of 22 passing against a very stout Detroit Lions defense a week ago. Of those 213 passing yards, Treylon Burks had a 37-yard reception, Zach Ertz, he had a 30-yard reception, and Jalen Lane, he caught his lone pass for 41 yards. Now, without Jaden Daniels, Washington's offense looks like a shell of itself. Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt, he manages 30 yards rushing on his 11 carries. And without Daniels in the lineup, his numbers have not been good. Chris Rodriguez carried the ball 6 times for just 16 yards, Washington, they did an okay job of protecting Mariota, but he was still sacked twice. As for Miami's inclusion, they sacked Josh Allen 3 times, picked him off once, and held a Bills offense to just 13 points last week. Sure, Allen, he threw for 306 yards, but nobody's going to be confusing Mariota for Allen anytime soon. Another pair of players that nobody's confusing for one another is Bill Merritt and James Cook. And Cook, he was held to just 53 yards rushing on his 13 attempts last week. If Miami can limit the NFL's second leading rusher to just 53 yards on the ground, in theory, they shouldn't have any issues with this Commanders ground game. Miami enters this contest fresh off a 13-point performance there in week number 10 and have scored 7 or more fantasy points in 2 of their last 3 outings. And the final star of the week, it's the Dallas Cowboys as they take on the Las Vegas Raiders. Both the Dallas Cowboys and the Las Vegas Raiders offense, they are coming off of bye weeks. Sorry, what's that? Oh, never mind. I stand corrected. The Raiders offense did not have a bye week. They simply did not show up again. Against the Broncos, Geno Smith sacked 6 times, threw another interception, completing just 16 of 26 passes for 143 yards and 5.5 yards per completion. In total, the Raiders have conceded 27 sacks this season, which happens to be the 8th most, while Smith's 12 interceptions are the 2nd most. Whenever a defense has an opportunity to go against a team like the Raiders, who's going to turn over the ball and get sacked, you have to start them. Week number 10, Denver, they scored 14 fantasy points. Okay, that's the Denver Broncos. That doesn't mean anything, does it? Well, in 9 games, the Raiders have been responsible for 6 double-digit fantasy producing weeks and have been generously giving opposing DSTs 10.3 fantasy points per game. Only the Jaguars and Titans failed to produce more than 7 fantasy points when they've played the Raiders. And if you haven't already done so, make sure to hit that like and follow button, and make sure you head over to RotoBaller.com for all the latest news and fantasy analysis. We'll see you next time.